Good.
Okay, it's 6 o'clock, so we'll call our meeting to order. It's actually 6:01. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alicia, could you please take roll call?
Yep. Laura Galargen?
Here.
Ian McDonald?
Here.
Matt Foucault?
Here.
Lacey Oster?
Here.
Bruce Galargen?
Here.
Cherie Link?
Here.
Marge Blow? Here.
Okay, and moving forward with our approval of the agenda, is there a motion to approve the agenda tonight?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving forward, I did not receive any open forum, did you, Shannon?
No.
Okay, so we'll keep going and we'll move on to our reports. First is our listening session summary, and to my knowledge, there was nobody that attended our listening session tonight.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move forward with our superintendent's report.
All right,
Go
thank
ahead,
you.
Shannon.
So wanted to start by just giving you the most recent information from school perception. So the window for the survey closed last week. I had sent Rob a message actually this morning, kind of asking for the final completion rate, and we ended at 24.1%. He felt that was obviously an extremely high response rate, and he was really confident about the data that he received back. As I've mentioned a couple times, he will be here August 8th to give you a pretty detailed overview of what the data kind of showed, and then certainly you guys can have discussions after that. Which kind of leads me to, I want to suggest again that we get a date on the calendar for the August special session. I couldn't really recall if we'd thrown around any dates, but I think the sooner we can kind of get that dialed in, the better. As I mentioned, the 8th is our regular work session. He was suggesting potentially the week of the 15th. Certainly we're not bound to that by any means, but wanted to kind of put that on your radar for you guys to have a discussion about getting that special session on the calendar. So Rob and I have a meeting later this week where he's going to give me his, I would say, overview of kind of what the data looks like at this point, just kind of, he and I can wrap our heads around it a little bit and kind of see where we landed. So I wish I had a better answer as to why we were still getting some emails from people even in 54025 that hadn't received the survey. The company had indicated we gave all the stuff to the post office. The post office said everyone should have received one, and even just a day or two we received another email that that was not the case. So I have no idea why, but I guess the next time we kind of go through this, some pieces we'll want to take a look at to make sure that however potentially that happened, that certainly that doesn't happen again. But so questions on school perceptions?
I'd just like to make a comment about
Yeah.
the mailing. I had people contact me, and they said every single year they get the census letter that Don Spafford sends out for the school, but they did not get the survey. So perhaps we want to check with how Dawn is sending out the census.
Yep.
Because apparently she's doing something right.
Yep.
I will say though, in the last couple of weeks, I've had a few pieces of mail that we've expected that have not shown up, which is odd. So I don't know if it's a post office thing.
Yeah.
Well, and then there's the disconnect because you have school perceptions, and then you had the printing company, and then you had the post office. So I'm curious, like, where was the gap? What happened? Because with Lori, like, we're still getting, emails and inquiries about, okay, where is this? But yeah, I think definitely something. I mean, we can't go back now, but I think at least the next time this happens, to make sure that
Right.
we have kind of covered all of those pieces.
I think the good news is it looks like that people that did receive it, certainly we had a high rate of completion, which was good. But some sort of gap there that we're going to want to make sure we get fixed for the next time. So
he's here on the 8th. Is he here for the work session on the 8th? Or just with you?
nope, he's here on the 8th to talk to you. Yep.
Shannon, before moving forward, do we want to look at calendars to possibly set that special session? Because I know August, I know the 15th was thrown out before, because it is a Monday. I feel like getting it on the calendar sooner than later is
Right.
probably a good thing.
I'm good with the 15th.
I'm good.
Works for me.
March,
I should be good.
Monday, Bruce?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sheree, how about you? Would the 15th of August work?
I will likely be traveling, but could call in.
Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Okay, so can we do that?
Great.
Can we set that special session for the 15th, so then we can put it on the calendar?
And do you want to keep it at 6 or do you want to start earlier? I don't know how early people can be here.
I'm okay with earlier.
March, how about you?
Yeah.
Could we do 5? Bruce? Or is it easier to keep it 6, so it's
Let's do 5.
5? Ian?
Yeah.
5? Lori, that's okay with you?
Yep.
We have BCS? No. But if nobody cares what I look like,
Okay
we
with
can
me.
be here at 4.
I can be here at 4 as well.
Lori might not appreciate it.
Oh, I think.
Just
he-
saying.
The way you look like you.
Right.
I don't know if Bruce can though.
No, he's saying as long as nobody cares what he looks like.
Oh.
Yeah.
You thought maybe you might.
He's a little smelly. Let's do 5 o'clock.
Okay, 15th,
So
5 o'clock.
15th, 5 o'clock. Do we need to double check with Rob? Well, I guess we don't really need Rob,
Nope, it would really be,
just us.
yep, you guys having that
Okay,
discussion. Mhm.
perfect.
So I met with Bob Gunther this past week from the village just to kind of get up to speed a little bit, specifically on a couple topics. One being the fence that we've talked about before. He confirmed that we are not required to put a fence around the drainage pond that's over by the middle school. Certainly if we chose to do that, fine, but he said there's no requirement. He had kind of talked about some of the natural barriers that are around it already between rocks and shrubs and things like that, but he was going to have an engineer come out and take a look at it and then give us another recommendation. We certainly, can do whatever we choose to do. We're not bound by necessarily any of that, but I was mostly curious because I'd heard kind of two different things, so I want to make sure I had the most accurate information that it's not a requirement, but if it's something we choose to do, we can certainly do that. So I can certainly bring you some more information from when his engineer takes a look at it and says, kind of what his recommendation is. I'm happy to do that. He had mentioned a little bit about, the growth and development that's happening behind us. So I'm sure this has probably already been brought to you, but I want to make sure that I just shared, the most recent information. So there's 430 houses going in behind us, building 40 per year to help manage a little bit of the growth that's going back there. And then just approved earlier in the week is another 125 residential lots just north of town, kind of north of the industrial park. And that's the same builder that's building behind us too. So good news, right? Hopefully for the district and more growth and families, which would be awesome. So then he had shared with me a little bit of information too, just more about the community of some things that are coming into town between the next 1 to 3 years that may not necessarily impact the school directly, but just more having a conversation of just community growth, which was exciting. So questions about that? Okay. So I had 2 other really quick things. So, in the vein of trying to put some things on the calendar, I would love to get a date on the calendar for a board retreat. My suggestion would be either August or September and really not going any further past September if we could. My tentative thought was, carving out probably like a 5 to 9 or something like that, and having an outside person come in for the first 2 hours and do some facilitation, some professional development, those kinds of things. And then the second half really being more us having some of that internal conversation about areas of focus, goals, norms, just, things to kind of help set the tone for us working together. So if that's something that could happen tonight, great. If we want to wait till the next meeting, I'm okay with that too, but I want to just kind of keep that on the radar of something that I'd like to get on the calendar for us to be able to schedule and kind of get moving on. So up to you how quickly we schedule that, but I think that'd be really helpful.
Thoughts for that? Can we look at our calendars and get something on the calendar? Are you guys okay with that? thinking more like a 5 to 9, something in that?
Roughly, I think that amount of time would be a really good starting point. Mhm.
5 to 9 seems like a long time to me. When we did board development with Cheryl from WASB, I think she recommended no more than 2 hours.
Mhm.
And then we ran out of time though. We could have kept on going or do like 2 smaller times too.
Great, we can chunk it up, we can, whatever's gonna make the most sense of,
I would prefer just to come in once,
Okay.
one night.
I agree, I would, we can certainly block the 5 to 9, we're there one time, and if we're done at 8 or 7, that's great.
Marge, how about thoughts or what days are better? Are Mondays favorable
Any.
for you?
That's fine. I don't know that we need a 5 to 9, no, that's a long time.
We have meetings 3 Mondays in August, so we'd be looking at August 1st or August 29th.
I think the first is probably too close, right, if you want to bring somebody in. 29 would be available for me.
I could do the 29th as well.
It's 4 in a row, but
I mean, another option could be like September 19th, if you want to push it.
Could keep the Monday, August streak going.
the 19th would be tough for me to be here by 5.
I'd rather. I think I'd like to see the 29th, just I'm probably busy though, coming back to school, but I mean, I think with this referendum discussion, I think we need to have that as part of it. I think by the 19th, we're almost too far in for it. So I 4 in a row is a lot, but I think we do that. I'd say the 29th.
I agree, just, for me also just keeps us ahead of fall sports, haven't started yet, so it's a little bit easier.
And maybe 6 to 9 makes more sense. You know, I'm not married to 5 to 9, but I don't want to run out of time.
Right. Or can we say 5 to 8, and if we go a little bit
Yeah.
over, like we can,
Let's go
Right
5
on.
to 8, because then we can, if we feel we're kind of getting stale, then we just,
Sure.
yeah.
and then maybe hit back on the 19th or something. Some follow-up.
So does the 29th work with everybody?
And so that would be a special, posted as a special session.
Here? 5.
We did 6 tonight?
That works for me.
Yeah, 5 is gonna be tight. I'll probably make it, but I hate to be late.
Or can we do 5:30? 5:30 to 8:30? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Enough time? Or would you rather do 6?
5:30. Let's shoot for 5:30. 5:30.
We do 5:30 to 8:30?
Sold.
March, does that work with you?
That's fine.
Okay. It's on the calendar.
Awesome. Okay, my last thing is really small, but Alicia and I talked about it being really important. We would like a school board picture to be able to put on the website, to be able to kind of showcase. Looks like Cherie's not here, so we have to pick a different night, but something else I just want to put on the radar that we'd like to be able to put that on our website of everyone together and put names with faces and those kinds of things, so. Probably small fish to fry, but want to make sure that I mentioned it, so. And that was what I had.
Do it on the 8th, next
August
meeting?
8th?
I won't be here.
Okay.
How about the 15th?
You just Photoshop me.
How about the
Good.
15th? Our special session. Does that work?
Be here.
Perfect.
But Sheree maybe.
Oh,
Sheree
Sheree.
might not be.
Okay. Well, how about the next August
Sure.
meeting that we're all
will- yep.
here? We will take a
Perfect.
picture. Everybody be
I'll be
ready
here
with
today,
their
this time.
smiles. No hands, Bruce. Just kidding.
You gonna give me a hat to wear?
No, we should take it on the 29th. the 29th after our retreat. That would truly capture.
There you go.
Too dark.
Who will take the picture? Do we need to like, got that covered, Alicia? or-
One of us will take it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Remember Sunday best. There we go.
So this is for, on the website, we're not gonna have a great big 12 by 14 printed in my home.
That wasn't my plan, but certainly if you guys would like that, we could,
No, I
okay.
don't, because I
Yeah,
thought that was a waste of money, because,
yeah, because now it's sitting back in our,
What happened one time?
yes,
Yeah, our
and there
first-
was a great big portrait made and hung in the vestibule, and as soon as the next election happened, it was out of date.
Yeah.
Which is why in the past, we had individual pictures of school board members.
Well, it might be nice to get an individual one too, just in case.
Great.
So an individual in a group, but no 12 by 12.
Doesn't need to be printed.
They don't have to be framed or printed.
Yeah, not even.
Not even, nobody prints pictures.
Yeah.
yeah, we just came across that big one the other day when we were back there. I was like, oh, that's where this went. Okay,
Oh,
perfect. So that's what I had. Thank you.
okay. Let's see, looking at the agenda, next is financial reports. Is there anything additionally that needs to be said with the financial report? It's all linked there. Was there any questions or comments for that? No? Okay. And that, let's see, we can keep on moving then. Do we have to approve the financial report? No, keep moving. Okay. Advanced operations, moving to policy reviews. These were all policies that we discussed at our working session. Matt, do you want to talk to the policies?
Yep, so 8450 is pulled out of here, so we discussed that one. That had the shall, may language that we discussed. Neola is actually doing an update anyways, so it's pulled out. It'll come back. We'll address their update and the shall, may at that time. So that's out. 8453, this was sent out to Dr. Belil as well as Ryan Bang. He was still here, just for feedback on that wording of of the monitoring in place of sending home, showing symptoms instead of suspected. Both of them agreed the wording was acceptable. There was then some questions about what does monitoring mean? What about a significant outbreak, such as Hep A or Salmonella, E. coli? And I think that all of those will fall back on the guidelines. So, I think that we are in agreement to keep the language as the monitoring and the showing symptoms. But I think it would be worth taking a look at the guideline to make sure the guidelines address what do we do. Because that's really what the policy points us to.
Right, and my experience in the past has been, and this might be something that you want to check with Chris Petrillo, my experience in the past has been if it's not stated in the policy, it cannot be addressed in the guidelines. And I think we want some guidelines provided to our healthcare office people about what are going to be the situations and the guidelines for when to send a student home. I think it's been, if they are vomiting or if they've had a fever, are two of the ones I remember.
Yeah, so Chris, sorry, go ahead.
I say those would be symptoms. I think what the concern is from a couple of years ago, with the close contacts, all the kids that missed 2 weeks of school, and out of all of that in-person learning that was lost, there's less than 1% actually had COVID. So that we're trying to eliminate the suspected part of it, and I don't think anybody wants anybody that is symptomatic in school.
Right.
That's not the point.
Yeah, we had a good conversation with Chris from Neola about this topic and even about the shall may and what does following state statutes. He had a lot of opinions. He thought this language was appropriate, the monitoring in place of the sending home, and he thought that the showing symptoms instead of suspected, it speaks to essentially the same thing, but it's different wordings. He was in support and he thought this was appropriate. He said it is consistent kind of with what other policies out there are doing. And then we'll talk about shall may also when that comes around, because he said there's definitely, there's policies all over the state that are addressing that because everyone's kind of in the same boat. So, yeah, we had actually a pretty significant conversation about those two policies, and so he was in support. He thought it was appropriate, and then like I say, Dr. Belil and Ryan both, they have the same questions that we do, and it's it's all those unknowns, but they thought it was acceptable. So.
I agree that we have to make sure that there's still guidelines about what the protocols are gonna be about sending staff members or students home. So, yeah, I would like to see what those guidelines are as well.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a conversation with with replacement of district nurse. If that's something you want to address. Otherwise, the other policies, everything is as was presented 2 weeks ago.
Any other questions or discussion regarding the policies? Is there a motion to move forward and approve the policies as presented?
Does anybody in the policy committee want to do it?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve policy review A, 1, and then policies 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 as listed on the agenda.
Second.
I will second.
We got lots of seconds there. Awesome. I heard Ian first, Alicia. Okay. Any continued discussion with
Or
that?
can we just make a note that we will, I'm not sure how you wanna say it, but something about, checking on the guidelines?
Yep.
Can we have that in the
In the
minutes to
motion?
remind us?
Yep, I just wondered, should we make it with the motion, you think?
It would make it
Yeah,
more
let's do that.
clear.
Okay. So just add into my motion to approve, obviously, policies 1 through 7 as listed on the agenda. And request that the district nurse present feedback on the current guidelines as laid out in policy 8453. Yeah, right.
Is there a second to that? Ian? Will you
We
second that?
The amended
Yeah,
motion.
sorry.
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. So then that policy 8450 will come back to us. Moving on to handbooks. Is there any questions with the all-school, middle, elementary, high school, the coaches or virtual program handbook? Any discussion or questions involving those?
I have two.
Yes, Lori.
The high school handbook, if you open it and on the side with the computer where it says page 11, it talks about the community service, and it says something about the hours being adjusted due to COVID. And I was wondering if this was still the case.
What are you looking at here?
On the computer, it's page 11, but on the actual document, it says 10 at the bottom. And it has to do, we have a requirement that in order to graduate, you have to have completed at least 80 hours of community service. And then it says underneath it, that's been adjusted because of the COVID pandemic and the amount of community service available for students to participate in. And I'm wondering, what's the status of that?
Yep, would it be helpful if we put in there, like, per the current classes, what the requirements are? Because, like, for example, the freshmen last year moving into being sophomores, they're back to 80. but our current juniors and current seniors are still reduced.
Okay.
Of course, I cannot remember off the top of my head what those numbers are, but we could certainly put that in there, that class of 23 is this number, class of 24 this number, if
Well,
that's
I
what
think-
you're looking for, or,
I think the way it is,
Okay.
it's fine because it says may be reduced. I
Yeah.
was just wondering what the status was.
yeah, so we have 2 classes left that have a reduced requirement, and then our incoming sophomores are back to 80.
Okay.
Yep.
And the other question I had was the virtual handbook. And I don't think those pages are numbered, but if you look at the cursor on the side as you go through it, it's page 6 of 8. And it's the heading on-campus requirements. It has to do with testing. So it says, these include assessments at grades 6 through 8 and 10, but then it goes on to talk about the ACT Aspire at 9 and the ACT at 11. And I was wondering if instead of saying 6 through 8 and 10, it should just say 6 through 11, because it also talks about the fast bridge testing.
Yeah, we can certainly make that change, and actually, I'm seeing we should also change where it says ACT Aspire, because that is no longer the assessment starting this year for grades 9 and 10.
Oh,
So why don't I just kind of, I can do all of that at the same time. Yep.
and there was no memo or any highlights on it. It looks like this is pretty much a brand new handbook.
Well, last year, and don't quote me on this, but, last year, there was a framework. I know this year, he specifically put in the added information regarding truancy, that attendance policy on page 4. Because that was something that I know we ran into last year as kind of emerging as a bit of an issue that we maybe didn't necessarily see coming. So we wanted to put some more, I would just say some more teeth into that part of it. But in terms of, I guess, anything else that was a big change from last year, I'm not sure either. But I can definitely change that paragraph on page 6.
That was all I saw.
Any other discussion or questions?
Does that mean we approve all of them except for 6, or are we good approving 6?
I think I'll make a motion to approve all of the handbooks with the change in the virtual program handbook on page 6 with the on-campus requirements.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on, we're looking at the consenting agenda. So approving the minutes, board bills, personnel, meal expense, and districts, school district meal prices. Is there any discussion or questions with any of those items?
I had communicated with Lacey
Mhm.
about the minutes. There was one of them that said no discussion, but it was something that we did have discussion on. I think it was the enrollment report. And Lacey said that we'll be that's one of the things that we can talk about in the retreat, is how specific we want to be in our minutes.
And I know that was something that came up a couple meetings earlier, so that's kind of something that Alicia, Shannon, and we've kind of talked about, okay, what can we do to make sure, but also to make it doable for Alicia too. And, even looking back at, because I was going back like years to minutes and looking, there was one point where everything was like verbatim. And then there was other ones and I'm like, whoa, like lots of stuff is missing. So I think that that's, as a board, together deciding what is that, because then that other piece is, I don't want to, neglect anybody's thoughts or discussion, but also then it's a lot. If you put all of those pieces. So that is that's gonna be a board retreat, conversation item that we can kind of say how as a whole, do we wanna move forward with that? Okay, anything else with those? Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion. Make a motion to approve consent agenda 5A, 1 and 2, B, 1, C, 1 and 2, and D1 and E1.
I'll second.
Any discussion with that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, moving on to our just general information. Our next meeting will be on August 8th, and that will be a work session starting at 6. We've then added that special session on the 15th, that's not listed there, and then we have another meeting, the regular session on the 22nd. And we will continue to have that listening session a half hour prior, with the once around the table. Matt, do you want to go first?
Sure, and I have nothing.
I just want to say I've gotten a couple of shout outs in the last week, just kind of with the environment around campus, at our district office, at our high school, and just kind of some kind of a pat on the back, I think, to our district and new administrator and new high school principal. So it's been nice with a lot of communication back and forth, and I think it's some exciting things ahead, so. Bruce?
I do not have any.
Nothing.
Nothing? Lori?
I was wondering about a construction update with our remaining funds, where we are on projects. I know the financial report isn't current with the dollar amount because it was as of June, but it was $334,000 then. You know, where are we on the projects that we approved, and what's the money looking like? And if you're not ready to talk about that, we can wait until our next meeting.
Well, maybe have that fence information with that as well.
Is there
Okay.
anything you want to?
So I would say my best answer right now is we probably won't know final until after the audit. I think Dave's kind of waiting for all final numbers to come in and,
So after the
Wrapped up.
audit, as in December?
no, in next month, in the next couple weeks.
Okay,
Yep, they're on site the first week in August.
right,
Yep,
but it's not finalized until December, so that's what I thought you meant.
no,
Okay.
no, he thinks in the next couple weeks, for sure.
And then the other thing that I would have been thinking about is, we have talked so many times about a McGrath salary study, and at this point, I'm wondering if we even want to go forward with it at this point.
Well, the only information I have is that there's now a meeting on my calendar with Victoria for August 5th. That's the most that I know. So maybe let me do that and then let's just see.
Do we have a contract with,
I don't know that either, I know.
because
Yeah, the 5th.
I'm kind of tired of paying for services that we're not getting.
I'll double check about a contract, I'm not sure. But I do know that Dave, Jody, and myself are meeting with her on the 5th. And
Thank you.
I just got that today, so
I would agree, I'd like that to come back to,
Yeah.
if we're kind of moving forward, because I think, this is something, since we got on, like every time it's like, oh, okay, we keep
Mhm.
talking about
December.
it, but.
It's been a year, I believe.
Anything else?
I'll look
Lori?
into that.
Thank you. That's it, thank you.
Ian? Okay.
Sheree?
Sheree, sorry, I can't see your face, so. Anything for once you're on the table?
No, thank you for asking.
Okay. Then we need a motion to move into closed session with Wisconsin Statute 19.85 for consideration of employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data. Is there a motion to do so?
So move.
Second? Any discussion?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Roll call vote.
Oh, we'll do a roll call vote then, I was thinking of. So, roll call vote, Lori?
Yes.
Ian?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Me, yes. Bruce?
Yes.
Marge?
Yes.
Cherie?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. We will now
Can
move.
you just confirm with me who, was that Lori who made the motion?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. And did I get the second?
Bruce did.
There's a delay.
Bruce got the second.
Bruce, oh.
Sorry, you were a little delayed.
I didn't even hear Sherry, I'm sorry.
No.
About Max.
Okay. Okay, we're good, yeah.